Alright, budget magic time. Playing some Energy Fog in Standard. And this hand is a red source away from being the nuts. And we're on the draw, so we can draw in Evolving Wilds and Ether Hub. So many things that just turn this hand into almost unbeatable. Plains is not on the list. Wrong color. We don't have many basics in this deck, and it's a little unfortunate. Looks like Esper control. Alright, there's Evolving Wilds. So we're back on board with slamming Fevered Visions. Hopefully our opponent can't counter it. There's blue mana, so potentially they can. Let's crack Evolving Wilds. We need red mana. Let's play an island and Deadlock Trap. Oh man. Oh, our opponent hit F6'd. I was worried about a counter, thought maybe we could bait it with Deadlock Trap, but our opponent apparently just did not have one. And we could have slammed Fevered Visions. Well, I guess that means next turn we're going to start slamming Fevered Visions. I mean, slam Fevered Visions, slam Fevered Visions. If they get countered, we just... Unless we draw, like, Glimmer. Alright, Fevered Visions. There's Void Shatter. So, Inspiring Vantage, pass the turn. Void Shatter is annoying because that means we can't even Wildest Streams it back. Transgress. Oh, seriously? Well, that went poorly. So we're down 2 Fevered Visions. Now there's a Lumbering Falls. I guess Lumbering Falls is something-ish. Opponent passes. Glimmer of Genius is actually pretty solid. Let's play the Mountain. Let's just pass. See if we can find a window to resolve Glimmer. And let's keep being patient. We don't really have a way to punish our opponent for tapping out to counter our Glimmer. So, but our opponent's going to feel forced to do something because they're getting to discard to hand size territory. Or maybe they just discard to hand size. Discards a Liliana. Ooh, Fateful Showdown too. Well, Ether Hub, go. Sooner or later our opponent's going to cast something, and we're going to Glimmer. Alright, let's pass the turn. Descend upon the Sinful discarded. There we go. Painful Truce, which means we get to Glimmer of Genius. Put both of these to the bottom. Okay. Opponent's up to 10 cards. Did they really not find a land? Good God. If they didn't find a land, they might just scoop. That's pretty bad. Okay, they found a land. So I think, given what we know about our opponent's hand, we have 2 options. Option 1 is to Wildest Dreams back Glimmer, and then Glimmer. Prophetic Prism. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just Wildest Dreams for Glimmer. Get back Glimmer. Play Evolving Wilds. Pass the turn. So now we can Glimmer on our opponent's end of turn. Into Fateful Showdown. Port Town for our opponent. Do they have a land to reveal? They do. A Prairie Stream. So our opponent has 5 mana. Plays a Liliana. Okay. Takes up Liliana. So crack Evolving Wilds. Get our last basic. Glimmer. Put both of these to the bottom. Ugh. Well, let's just Fateful Showdown. No redirect. Into Dynavolt Tower. That was not a good Fateful Showdown. We drew a lot of nothing. Into Ether Hub. Get an energy. And pass the turn. Jeez. I mean, I guess Dynavolt Tower was good, but we discarded a lot of stuff and didn't draw another Fateful Visions. We still have 3 Glimmers, 3 Fateful Visions, a couple of Fevered Visions. Or Fateful Showdown, rather. Still, our opponent was pretty behind on mana, so we're probably okay. Anguished Unmaking our Dynavolt Tower. So just hit our opponent. Down to 7. And this drops our opponent down to 4. Takes up Liliana. Plays a land. And passes. And we get Prophetic Prism. Draws us a card. Fevered Visions. Resolves. Okay. Ether Hub. Getting energy. Pass the turn. Not going to attack and get blown out. Oh, that's Fateful Showdown. Fateful Showdown can potentially end the game. If our opponent's got to play things to not die to Fevered Visions. And if they tap down, we have exactly lethal with Fateful Showdown. Takes up Liliana. Sorin, Grim Nemesis. All right, let's finish our opponent off. Turn this into red. Fateful Showdown, 4/4. And that does it. Whew, alright, so we took down control in game 1. They don't seem to have creatures, so we probably got to go down fogs. Bring in all of our counters. Bring in our quarantine fields. Go down. Commencement of festivities. And encircling fissure. Try it like that. Alright. We have a solid hand. Our mana's not exciting, but we have a tower. Yeah, this is fine. I'm assuming our opponent brings in a lot more counters. So Lumbering Falls, goo. Counters and discard is what I'm expecting a lot of. Port Town for our opponent. Transgress the Mind. Takes Dynavolt Tower. Alright, let's play Evolving Wilds, pass the turn. Alright, tap land for our opponent. We'll crack this, get a Plains. Play an island and Deadlock Trap. Resolves. Good way to keep Planeswalkers in check. The big payoff is Fevered Visions. Opponent has Liliana, by the looks. Lost Legacy. Okay. So I guess this is... Oh. Jeez. Okay. Lost Legacy for Glimmer. Interesting. I would assume Fevered Visions is a scarier card, but... Fevered Visions is a card our opponent's going to have the harder time beating, I would assume. But okay. They get to look at our deck. We draw a useless land. Opponent plays a tap land. We play Cinderglade, pass the turn. Well, this kind of took a turn. That was pretty bad for us to lose all of our glimmers. We really wanted to cast that to find new cards. Plains for our opponent. And passes. Now let's play a mountain that our opponent knows about. And a Deadlock Trap. Opponent Void Shatters. They're down to 3 cards in hand, though. So we pass the turn. There's a Glimmer for our opponent, since they still have them in their deck. Plays a Swamp. Well, we play an Evolving Wilds, pass the turn. I guess I could have gotten in, should have gotten in with Lumbering Falls. It might be better to bluff a counter, though. There's Liliana. Takes it up. Anguished Unmakings are Deadlock Trap. Okay, so crack Evolving Wilds, get an island. Would be a nice time to draw Fevered Visions. Now, let's just lumber at Liliana. Play Cinderglade, pass the turn. Takes up Liliana. Opponent passes. Dynavolt Tower. Resolves. So let's play a second Lumbering Falls, pass the turn. Opponent Gear Hulks. For Anguished Unmaking, okay. Yep. Well, all this exiling has made our Wildest Dreams pretty bad. And, again, not good at drawing Fevered Visions. That's our best way of winning this matchup. Opponent gets in with Torrential Gear Hulk. And passes. Well, let's Canopy Vista. Cast. Quarantine Field X2. Try to get the Liliana and the Gear Hulk. We'll see. Does our opponent have more counter spells? Opponent anticipates, likely looking for an answer. Takes something, puts the rest to the bottom. Quarantine Field resolves. Get Gear Hulk, get Liliana. I guess it's also possible they just kept another Anguish Unmaking, which would be pretty annoying. Alright, no Anguish Unmaking is good news. So our opponent is once again threatless. There's the Anguish Unmaking. Well, our opponent's down to 11. They do get to Glimmer of Genius, again, for free. Puts both to the bottom, draws a couple cards. Takes up Liliana. Thinks about casting something, changes their mind. We draw an Ether Hub. Now let's play Ether Hub. Quarantine Field, X2. Hit both again. How many Anguish Unmakings can you possibly play without killing yourself? Opponent plays a Swamp. You can see the difference between one deck having Glimmer and our deck not. Also, not having Fevered Visions. Deck really likes Fevered Visions. Opponent passes. We draw an Ether Hub. Because of Torrential Gearhulk, I don't even think we can really attack. We just get so blown out if they Torrential Gearhulk. And we haven't drawn a single counter. We brought in 6 from the sideboard. Alright, there's Sorin. Opponent takes up Sorin, gets a land, plays the land. We draw Highland Lake. Well, Lumbering Falls, number 1. Lumbering Falls, number 2. Send them both at our opponent. I think we got to try to kill our opponent. Play Highland Lake, pass the turn. Opponent gets another land off Sorin, and passes. We get a Fateful Showdown. Now let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wildest Dreams back our Evolving Wilds. Pass the turn. We're kind of trying to set up a scenario where Fateful Showdown wins us the game. There's Torrential Gearhulk. Flashes back Anguish Unmaking? Whew. Oh my god. Alright, Anguish Unmaking on Quarantine Field. Drops our opponent to 2. Flashes back Anticipate. Do we just have to go for it is the question. We can slam Fateful Showdown. If our opponent doesn't have a counter, we just win. I don't know what the odds of that are, but I don't know if the odds get better if we wait. Especially, well, let's wait. Our opponent could tap down, like get a Glimmer and tap down to Glimmer, thinking that they're safe. Plays a Shambling Vent. Takes up Sorin. Oh, Lord. Takes up Liliana. Attacks with both, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We have to fire up a Lumbering Falls to chump. Block Torrential Gearhulk. Opponent passes. We draw Tranquil Expanse, so let's Ether Hub. Fire up our Lumbering Falls. Attack our opponent for potentially lethal, but I don't expect this to work. And then basically whatever our opponent does, we Fateful Showdown and just hope for the best. Also don't really expect that to work, but Blessed Alliance, full power. Well, let's try it. The benefit of this scenario is if our opponent is on Summary Dismissal, it doesn't work. And our opponent has Dispel. Alright. So our opponent found the right combo of things. Lost Legacy kept us from drawing cards, and we just didn't draw anything, unfortunately. This is one of those matches. We need our counters and our Fevered Visions and our Dynavolt Towers and card draw, and we just didn't draw any of them. I think we probably just run it back like this, though. There's not much else to be done. I guess we can go down these repels for Harness Lightnings, which can potentially kill a Gearhulk, and try it like that. Alright, we're on the play. And we have the Nut Draw with no lands, so we got a mulligan. Now we have the anti-Nut Draw. But we'll keep this. We get to scry, keep Tranquil Expanse, I guess. It is a land, so Mountain Goo. Opponent plays a Sunken Hollow. So we play Mountain and Prophetic Prism. Draws us a card, Dynavolt Tower. Unfortunately, we don't have an untap land to get it down next turn. Swamp for our opponent. And there's Transgress the Mind. Has a few options, goes with Dynavolt Tower. Well, Tranquil Expanse, Goo. Opponent has an island, and passes. We draw Cinderglade. Pass the turn. I think this is a Fateful Showdown hand. Opponent anticipates. Well, let's Fateful Showdown. If our opponent has Dispel, they have Dispel. Not great. We do a couple damage, draw even more lands. At least we got another Fateful Showdown, but that's not really what we were hoping for. So opponent takes something off Anticipate. Plays a Prairie Stream. And passes. We get a Deadlock Trap. I think we just pass the turn and try to Fateful Showdown again. There's Glimmer. So we Fateful Showdown. Well, we got a Fevered Visions. Unfortunately, it'll probably get countered, which is not great. Maybe our opponent just taps out for a Planeswalker, but we also know they have Anguish Unmaking, and we don't have good protection at the moment. Well, that's Prophetic Prism. draw a card, play an Ether Hub, get some energy, pass the turn. So I think what we're trying to set up now is end of turn Glimmer, untap Fevered Visions, something along those lines. Port Town for our opponent, untapped, and passes. Alright, Void Shatter, let's just pass the turn. We will snap counter Torrential Gearhulk if that's what our opponent's setting up. Alright, opponent just untaps, plays a Shambling Vent, and passes. Well, let's Glimmer of Genius. Let's put both lands to the bottom. Opponent's thinking, this is my chance to resolve a Gearhulk. I get to flashback Glimmer of Genius. They decide against it. So let's Ether Hub, get an energy, and play a Fevered Visions. Opponent goes with Void Shatter. Okay. So Fevered Visions 1, down. Pass the turn. There's also a time issue for our opponent. They're down to about 5 minutes when we have almost 15. Well, let's do the same thing. Fevered Visions number 2. Opponent has another Void Shatter. Okay. Well, that's annoying to lose both of our Fevered Visions, but there's not much we can do about it. Tapping out is pretty risky there. Opponent's down to 4 cards. Liliana, the Last Hope. Alright, I guess we let that go. Plays a land, down to 3 cards. Would be nice if we could actually draw some action. Wow, our opponent's going tap out. Sorin, yeah. That is not part of our plans for today. So, let's counter Sorin. Prophetic Prism draws us a card. Play an island. And Deadlock Trap. Pass the turn. Opponent's down to 2 cards. Plays another land. Fires up a Shambling Vents. Fires up another Shambling Vents. Well, let's Harness Lightning. Kill a Shambling Vents. So we really want card draw, Fevered Visions, Dynavolt Tower, any of that stuff. Opponent takes up Liliana. We draw Glimmer, so let's Glimmer. Evolving Wilds to the bottom. Negate, also to the bottom. There's Fevered Visions. See if it works. Fevered Visions. Whoo! We actually resolved a Fevered Visions! Who would have thought? We draw a card. It's a Plains. Pass the turn. Opponent takes up Liliana, the Last Hope, plays a land. Fires up the Shambling Vents. Goes to combat. Let's tap it down. Opponent draws. We get a Highland Lake. So let's play Highland Lake, pass the turn. We draw from Fevered Visions. Ooh, Quarantine Field. So I think we want to Deadlock Trap Liliana here. Well, we'll see. If we can protect those Fevered Visions, we might be in business. Opponent plays a land. And passes. We'll ping Liliana down to 4. We draw an Ether Hub. Well, let's play Ether Hub, get an energy, keep fueling our Deadlock Trap, pass the turn. Draw from Fevered Visions, an island. We could use more counters. Opponent plays Transgress the Mind. Okay, we can't really do anything about it. Takes Summary Dismissal. Takes up Liliana, the Last Hope. Plays an island. Did they find a Anguish Unmaking? Blessed Alliance to gain some life. Alright, that's fine. Opponent draws a card. Oh, they drew it? Oh, no! There's Anguish Unmaking for our opponent. We draw another land. Well, let's play a Plains. Quarantine Field, X1. Get rid of Liliana. I think we might be on the time game here. I mean, not trying to manipulate the time, but just staying alive until our opponent dies. Opponent anticipates. We have pretty good defense set up. And sooner or later, we're going to draw more Glimmers, Fevered Visions. We've drawn a lot of our non-action cards, but we have a lot of action cards left to go. We are down a bunch of Fevered Visions, which is annoying, but we do have Dynavolt Towers, and we do have a lot of Glimmers. Opponent's down to 2 minutes, so they're going to have to win quick if they're going to win. We draw another Quarantine Field. Let's play an island, pass the turn. And we have several threats covered, which is our opponent's biggest problem. There's Torrential Gearhulk. I'm going to flashback Glimmer. Well, that's Harness Lightning, Torrential Gearhulk. Opponent dispels. Okay, so Gearhulk lives. Opponent gets to Glimmer. So they draw a couple cards. Get to Scry. I think they scryed to the bottom with both. Only a minute and 30 seconds left for our opponent to win, though. Plays a land. Anticipates. Well, winning by time isn't the way I enjoy winning, but you take your wins how you can get them. Alright, Anguish Unmaking. Well, we tap down Torrential Gearhulk. Opponent plays Obnixilis. Unfortunately for our opponent, this means we get to Quarantine Field both of their threats. And we draw Glimmer. Okay. So let's lead on Glimmer. Bottom and top. Play a Forest. Quarantine Field X2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Quarantine Field X2. Get Torrential Gearhulk and Obnixilis. Pass the turn. Leave up Harness Lightning and have Dynavolt Tower for next turn. Here comes Shambling Vents. We're going to take the beats from Shambling Vents here. Down to 16. And we Dynavolt Tower. And we Dynavolt Tower number 2. And I think this does it. We might actually just be able to kill our opponent, come to think of it, if we draw spells. Opponent glimmers. Right now we can hit our opponent down to 9. Harness Lightning gives us more energy. We're very close to just winning. Glimmer for our opponent. So I think even if this game didn't go to time, I think we would have won. Most likely. Torrential Gearhulk. Going to flashback in Anguish Unmaking. Yeah, we would have won. I mean, our opponent's at 9. Yeah, so, alright. I mean, it's unfortunate that we won by time, but our opponent's tapped out. So what would have happened here? They have an Obnixilis, whatever. Torrential Gearhulk, whatever. They're essentially tapped out. We hit our opponent down to 6 with Dynavolt Tower. Then we Harness Lightning. Even if it gets countered, it doesn't matter. Harness Lightning X0 on a Gearhulk gives us enough energy for 2 more activations. And we would kill our opponent as soon as we untap. So if our opponent didn't time out, we would have won this turn anyway. Like, as soon as we untap, we would have won. So it feels bad to win by an opponent timing out, but we'll take it. I mean, especially in this scenario where we would have won anyway. It's a win. A win's a win. Sweet.